This will be a video for those who are new to the Blender program. Especially if you are opening this program for the first time, the interface may seem a bit complicated, but as you learn the details, you will see that it is not that complicated. Of course, I will not talk about all of Blender's features, but I will talk about the features that you can use the most, the features that you may need the most. The rest will come anyway. The most important thing you should pay attention to while learning Blender is keyboard shortcuts. Once you learn keyboard shortcuts, you can do your work in a much more practical way. We will use the mouse only for moving and dragging. As I said, keyboard shortcuts are important here. When you open the program and create a new project, a cube will be created by default. Around the cube, you will see aligned grids. They are called grids, and we have a light here, a camera here, and our object in the middle. You can also access the list of these objects from the right side. Whatever objects are in the scene, you can see a list of those objects on the right side. This is a three-dimensional program, and in 3 dimensions we see the x-axis, the y-axis and the z-axis. When we hover over it, there will be a circle. If I click and drag this area with the left mouse button, you will see that the circle is rotated. In this way, we rotate the environment and we can look at objects from different perspectives and different angles. We don't necessarily have to move the mouse pointer here. We can do the same with the middle mouse button by pressing the middle button. This is how we learned our first shortcut. After rotation, the zoom prompt, for example zooming in, is also among the features we need. By holding down the magnifying glass icon here, we can zoom in and out of the object. Of course, we do this by scrolling the mouse. We can also do this zoom in and zoom out by scrolling the mouse wheel without coming here. Another feature is the pan feature. We do this with the hand icon here. Move the wheel. By pressing and holding this, as you can see, it allows us to do the pan movement. So what is the shortcut for this move? Do we have to come here? Of course not. We press the shift key on the keyboard and press the middle mouse button. I pressed the shift key on the keyboard and pressed the middle mouse button, and that's how we can pan. We mentioned that there is a camera on the screen, and to switch to the view of that camera, we need to press the camera icon here. As you can see, we are now in the view of that camera. Of course, you will be able to adjust this camera as you wish. When I press it again, it switches to the user perspective view. So, it goes to free space. The shortcut for this is 0. We can understand this from the numpad 0 shortcut here when we hover over it. Of course, since it says numpad 0, we have to press the 0 with the numbers on the right, not the letters on the keyboard. By the way, let me remind you that when we do rotate with the middle mouse button while in camera mode, it exists camera mode. Now let me talk a little bit about the view modes. Look here on the keyboard, we are in user perspective mode, so we are in free mode. When you press 1 from the keyboard through the numbers on the right side, it switches to front orthographic view, so it shows the scene from the front. When I press 3, see here it switches to right orthographic view. This is the view from the right side. And when I press 7, it goes to top orthographic. So this way we are looking at the scene from above. When I press 9, it is bottom orthographic, which means we are looking at the scene from the bottom. So numbers 1, 3, 7 and 9 allow you to view the scene from different angles. When you scroll again with the middle mouse, when you scroll by clicking, this time it switches back to the free view, the user perspective view. We can also switch the user perspective by clicking on the icon here. Not only orthographic views, we can also switch to perspective view of this view. When we click on the numbers 1, 3, 7 or 9, as you can see, they will be orthographic. Click on 5 and we will switch to the perspective view of this area. So that's how I went to bottom perspective. I'm pressing 1 again, front orthographic, and when I press 5, we can also press this. See the shortcut for this is 5. When I click on this, notice here, from front orthographic, I press 5, it switches to front perspective. And we can think of this as switching to perspective view. And by pressing the numpad numbers 2, 4, 6 and 8, I press 2, it rotates downwards. I press 8 and it rotates upwards. Pressing 6 rotates to the right and pressing 4 rotates to the left. The plus and minus buttons on the numpad also act as wells on the mouse. When I press the plus button, it zooms in, and when I press the minus button, it zooms out. To show the selected object full screen, we again use the comma on the numpad side, that is the del button. Let's say we are anywhere. We have a small object like this. When you press the del key, comma key on the numpad from the keyboard, the selected object will be full screen. This is one of the buttons I use a lot. Another important part for beginners in Blender is this toolbox on the left side. It contains some tools that you can use to perform basic functions. If you don't see it or want to hide it, you can press the letter T on the keyboard to hide it, or press T again to make it visible. In any 3D program, all these tools act in a similar way, rotate or zoom. There is also Shift Space as a shortcut for these tools, so we need to press the space bar on your keyboard. When I press Shift Space bar, a small menu will open that allows you to access the tools on the left more quickly. And by pressing these letters that you see on the right side, you will be able to access these tools quickly. The first tool is Select Box. It will select the object in the area where you click with the mouse. You can see that it is selected by the lines around this object. Let's add a few more objects to the scene. I have added a couple of objects like this. None of them are selected at the moment. It will make them selected like this. You don't have to cover it completely. If you grab it, at the end it makes it selected. If you see an arrow on the bottom right of the icons in the toolbox, it means that there are alternative tools inside this tool. By holding down on it with the mouse, we can access other options. You can learn their meaning more easily by looking at the icons on the left. Select Box makes this selection by drawing a box. Circle allows you to draw a circle, and Lasso tool allows you to select more freely. I'm selecting Select Circle. You need to click on these central points so that it can select Circle. You will see a circle at the mouse cursor. When I press the letter C on the keyboard and then move the well, you will see this C expand. When it expands, of course, it expands the selection area. When I click like this, because it takes into account the center points of the objects, it selects the ones that fall within this circle. In this way, you can enlarge and reduce this circle. If you right click, it will cancel the editing you have done, the circle editing. Let's also try the Lasso tool. When I select the Lasso tool and we specify any area like this, as I said, it has a free selection style. It will select what goes inside this, or we can also make a selection like this. The other icon allows you to move. Here you see the Move tool. You can click on the object and move this object, without unpressing the mouse of course. Then if you right click, it will cancel the move. And likewise, if you press the Escape button, it will cancel the move. Now let's move to the Move tool. Let's access the Move tool with the Shift Space button that I showed at the beginning. We can also click on the Move tool with the mouse. We can activate the Move tool by pressing the letter G on the keyboard. Then we select an object, and this is how we can orient the object. The arrows already guide you enough. When you look here on the y-axis, you can see that it is on the y-axis. You can move it on the y-axis. You can move it up and down on the z-axis. And on the x-axis, you can move it on the x-axis using the red here. You will see little squares here. Let me delete these. And these little squares allow you to move it within that plane. So when I click on this and move it, it will move it in the y and x axis. It will not move it upwards. It will not move it in the z axis in the same way. When I click on this one, I can move it on the z axis and on the x axis. And when I click on this one, it means that I can move it along whatever alignment, whatever plane it is in. And here is an extra thing you need to know about these planes. Select one of these planes. Move it with the mouse. Look, you will see lines on all three axes. You can also press the middle mouse button to move along these lines. When you press the middle button, it will fix itself to that plane and can only be moved in that plane. As you can see, right now I'm moving it in the Z axis, and at the same time it allows me to move it in the other axis in a single plane. Left click with the middle mouse button. This is the Move tool. Another option is Rotate. So this is this tool. This tool also allows you to rotate the activate object relative to the specified axis. We can rotate it like this. We can rotate it like this. Or we can rotate it on the Z axis like this. You don't have to hold directly on the lines. You can also complete the rotation process freely by grabbing the empty spaces from the fields here. Another tool is scale. So let's take a shortcut. We can make the scale tool active by pressing the letter S after shift space. This tool is also about enlarging and shrinking the selected object. This is how you can resize objects in direction of the axis on the selected object, and it is also possible to resize it in the Z axis. Let's set that just like the move tool. Clicking on the dual planes here also allows you to resize along two planes, and when we hold it exactly in the center, we can do this dimensioning proportionally in all three axes. The next tool here is a more complex tool. It is the transform tool. Let's return it to its default state by pressing Ctrl Z. This complicated tool is the transform tool. When we click on this, it allows us to use these three tools in one tool. We can do sizing, we can rotate, we can also move. You can also use the subject according to your habits. We have learned what these tools are for. We have learned how to access these tools quickly with the keyboard shortcut. We can access these tools by pressing Shift space and pressing the letters here. I'll show you one more shortcut. This is a selection tool and a moving tool at the same time. With this tool, we can move it like this. It has X, Y and Z axis. If I press the X button from the keyboard, I can move it only on the X axis. If I press the Y button, I can move it only the Y axis. And if I press the Z button, I can move it on the Z axis from the keyboard. You can use this to speed up your program usage. We can also use combinations nested. What were our keys? The letters G, R and S were our shortcuts. Let's not forget them. G stands for move, R stands for rotate, and scale stands for resize. The shortcut for that is S. When we select this tool and move it like this, if I press G, we are using the move tool. That's the currently active tool. If I press R, we are using the rotate operation. And if I press S, we use the resize operation. Let's say S is active right now. I want to resize it on the Y axis. Therefore, if I press the letter Y right now, I'm sizing it on the Y axis. In this way, we can also use the information we know, the information we use, as a combination within themselves. For example, I pressed the letter R again, and now I can actively rotate in one plane. I will select other planes. For example, I press the letter Z. When I press the letter Z, it rotates in the Z axis. This is the basic use of the tools in the tool topic on the left. I hope it was useful. That's all for this video. If today's video was useful to you, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. Just click on the subscribe button below this video. Thank you for watching.